Hi everybody, I'm Jay Fenichel. Right now I want to talk to you about the full stroke. This is in the accent category of drumming, and it's probably the most important lesson to learn on the drums. And I know that's a pretty bold statement, but I firmly believe that this is probably one of the most important things that a drummer can really understand and internalize when it comes to learning the instrument. And the thing with the full stroke is it's the idea of understanding and accepting the rebound of the stick across the drum. Now, I know terminology is different. Some people say free stroke, some people say full strokes. Everyone has different ideas of what they call this, rebound stroke, whatever you want to say it is. But basically, it's just the idea of accepting the rebound of the stick. Learning that you come down for 50% of the energy, the stick comes back up for the other 50%. And like I said, that's probably the most important thing to understand because it goes back to your touch and your feel when you're playing around the drums. It's very important that you get that feeling down. So like anything, we're going to start where your stick touches your hands, back at your fulcrum. Now, we talk about the fulcrum a lot in these lessons, but it's that important. The fulcrum has to be there. Without the fulcrum, you can't feel rebound. And what a lot of drummers do is they end up squeezing, pushing, and losing the fulcrum. So developing a strong and relaxed fulcrum is the key to developing your feel and your touch. And the way to really practice it comes right back to the full stroke. Okay, what is a full stroke? A full stroke is an accented stroke. It's a loud stroke. And the idea of any accented stroke is to set itself up. So what a full stroke does, it starts in this position, which is we also call full position because we're pointing up towards the ceiling. And essentially, we're going to come down to the pad, make an accent, and the stick is going to bounce back up, and then we're going to catch it back at this original position. Now, of course, you don't let go of the stick completely or else the stick will go flying. But you want to, inside your fulcrum, keep it relaxed, keep it loose, and let the stick bounce back up to your original spot. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, if you watch that, it's going really quick. But what I'm doing is I'm coming down with my wrist and I'm bouncing it back to my original position. Now I'm not pulling it. It might even look like I'm going down and then pulling back up. 50% of the way down, 50% of the way up. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually just coming down. The stick is coming up by itself. I'll do that again, very slow. As I come down, the stick rebounds back up. And if you notice, it rebounds off of my fulcrum. Very important. Now, this isn't a true full stroke because let's see where my hand's ending up. I'm just kind of ending up with my hand here. And you want to be back in a position where you could hit that drum a second time. So the fulcrum has got to come back to its original position and you got to be ready to hit it again. Now, if you might notice, if I do it right here in my left hand, you'll see my fingers are coming out at the very end. It means I'm almost kind of letting go of that stick, except for the fulcrum, which is staying nice and relaxed, letting the stick rebound, then catching it back. Very important to understand that that's what we're doing. Now, that's good doing it fast. That's showing you what it looks like, the end result of it. I want to talk a little bit about how this is going to feel when you actually go to practice it. First thing we have to do, once again, is make sure our fulcrum is good. So looking at our right hand over here, I'm using my thumb and my middle finger as a fulcrum. Doesn't really matter where you like to use it. In fact, I recommend practicing this against all your different fulcrums to get good at it. And this is a great exercise, something I saw Dave Weckl do in a video and at a drum clinic. He talked about just finding your fulcrum by putting the stick into this position. And if you notice, I have this space right here. And this is my right hand. And in match grip, it's pretty much the same in your left also. And you're just going to feel the stick coming back. And make sure that track of the stick rebounding is nice and smooth and none of your fingers are in the way. Everything just stays very relaxed and that stick just has some track to follow. Just moves across your fingers, nice and relaxed. This is the first thing. You don't want to do this fast. You want to do this nice and slow and find that track. It's hard to do, just a simple thing like this. Now notice I'm just going very slow, making sure nothing is in my way. No fingers are curled underneath. That's stopping it. I'm not going to knock the stick out of the fulcrum like that because now I'm not on my thumb anymore. You want to make sure your thumb stays on the side of the stick, your fulcrum's in the right space, and the stick is coming up to this spot. Once you feel like you have that, step 2 is going to be to knock this stick back at a fairly good rate. Now notice with my left hand, I'm just hitting the back of the stick or the front of the stick, and I'm knocking it back across that fulcrum And then I'm using my fingers just to flick it back to its original spot. I also want you to realize my form. If you notice, my wrist is straight. I'm not in here, which is what some drummers do. They kind of play like this and hit it back towards their face. I don't like this form, personally. This is something that if you go back through some of the form exercises, you'll see why I actually prefer this, which is a more natural way your hand hangs. In doing that, the stick is actually going to go more over your shoulder than towards your face. If you notice, it's coming out towards my floor tom. It's not coming out towards me. So I want you to feel that. And notice I'm not flinging it back with my fingers. I can do that, but I want to actually let my hand push the stick back and feel that fulcrum. Now I want to do this until I'm blue in the face. I want to sit there and practice this, reset it. Practice it, reset it. Now you also might notice that in my left hand, I'm following through. I'm not doing that, which is tight. I'm just staying relaxed and following all the way through up to my ear. Straight through, knocking that stick all the way back. Now if you do this right, a lot of times you're going to knock that stick right out of your hand, which is going to happen. And if it does, it does. I'd rather see you be loose than be tight and then stopping that stick from moving. You got to be loose and let that stick just do its thing. And you want to practice this in both hands. Make sure you're feeling the feeling. Now, if you notice, my fingers, my left hand, are getting out of the way of the stick. They're curled right now around the stick, but as I hit, my fingers will actually stop the stick from coming back if I keep my fingers curled around. So at the second or the moment of impact, I got to straighten those fingers out and let that stick come all the way back. So find your fulcrum nice and slow. There it is. And then let it come back. Remember, if you're not clear on the fulcrum, this is not the fulcrum lesson. So go back to your drum lesson vault, look up the lesson on the fulcrum, and it'll go through how to find this. And I bet we'll do a lot of these same type of exercises. Once we found that fulcrum, we've knocked it back a bunch of times. It feels good. Next thing I want you to do is try this with the stick. So take the stick in your left hand and knock it back. The stick is going to knock it back at a much faster rate, and it really is going to want to jump out of your hands, and the urge to squeeze in here is going to be much bigger. Now remember, you don't want to squeeze. You want to keep that as loose as can be. Now notice I'm also following through with my left hand, coming all the way up to my ear, letting that stick knock all the way back. You want to do it in your left hand also. Let's do it this way. And let that stick come all the way back, keeping that fulcrum very relaxed. Don't be afraid to really knock it. A lot of times you are going to lose the stick. It's going to go flying out of your hand. That's fine, just so long as you keep that fulcrum relaxed. Don't practice this in a tense way.